What's up, mansion builders? I want to talk to you today about tariffs and the shaky place that we're in the market as we have seen through COVID crazy inflation and price increases, and then we might be hitting that again. More price increases for building materials. And if you're going to build a new construction mansion or you're going to get into the senior living space and you're going to do a big deal, how will this affect you? Because honestly, it will have an effect. And I want to unpack what you should consider because it will affect some types of deals different than other types of deals. So I had this similar circumstance a few years ago during COVID when we were building our assisted living at Platinum and pricing went nuts. I mean, everyone saw what lumber did. Lumber went like 4x on these things. It was $11 for a 2x4 and we're trying to build this massive mansion, right? And so different pricing along different things had an effect, and it did cost more money. But really there's kind of two different parts that I want to break down for you regarding this, because sometimes you're protected from inflation through tariffs and things like that, and sometimes you're not. So if you're going and you're building new construction, you're going through planning phases and you're really have this longer time frame of getting all of your ducks in a row, getting all of your numbers, going to your builder, they're getting all of their subs and materials together. Right? So when you're going in through and doing that, you'll really go through, kind of get some rough estimates, and then you'll finish permits, and then you'll go back and rebid. And you say, hey, you know what? We are ready. We're about ready to submit to the bank. Here is our current and final numbers. At that point right there, right, all of your subs that you're working with, they're going to go through, they're going to give you some hard numbers on these things. Now, these are really for the big items when you're talking about your framing, all of your lumber kind of numbers, when you're talking about your floors, your windows, your doors, the roofing material, all of those kind of things, you're usually going to get a firm, hard bid for materials and for labor. And your sub will go and talk to their manufacturer and they'll usually be able to hold that price. So if you start a few months later on construction and tariffs and inflation and crazy numbers have happened, usually you are good. They're gonna hold that pricing for materials and labor for a certain amount of time. And those most of the time are the bigger ticket items, right? Like our framing material and labor were like $300,000 for the mansions that we build. Right? A lot of these things, the windows, the doors, the flooring, those are the most expensive kind of things. Now, those are usually going to be solid. What's not going to be solid is all the little miscellaneous stuff, right? If you're picking out your fixtures, your door handles, your hinges, those little small things, maybe mirrors, maybe vanity lights, those kind of things, those can ebb and flow and fluctuate, but that's not the bulk of your money, right? You're not going to see a crazy price increase on your deal. Even if you had a 10% price increase on most products coming into the US, you're not going to see an overall 10% increase on your budget because a lot of your budget, most of it actually, is going to be fixed. It's going to be solidified with your subs, and you're going to sign that agreement saying, hey, here's what it is. That sub is going to sign their agreement with the manufacturer for all of their materials. So if we end up having a run up on materials for construction, I think it's going to affect the senior housing market differently. When you're talking about apartments, 55 plus, independent, lighter levels of care, that's going to drastically affect those kind of deals. But if you're talking about more end of life and you're talking about memory care, those deals I think are insulated from these kind of prices because of the size of the deal and the amount of income that you can charge for end of life care and memory care versus the income you can charge for independent. So I can see that tariffs, increases on all this material costs could drastically affect big deals for the big boxes, right? They're gonna go build this new 4-story building with 150 beds for independent and 60 for assisted living and 20 for memory care. Those right there, those are the projects that get delayed and they just don't get built because they have a much smaller margin. Even though they have assisted living and memory care, they still have most of their beds being on the independent living side. They're renting these apartments. They're not able to increase pricing enough to make those deals work. And honestly, bigger facilities like that, when they're doing bigger deals, they're running on a much thinner profit margin than you can if you do a smaller deal. So if you're comparing to, let's build a new construction 16 bed, let's have assisted living and memory care. We'll take care of people at the end of life and people with dementia. That right there, it's a much smaller deal, right? It's several million versus, $100 million deal, right? You can have much higher margins. You can have 30 to 40% margins on a smaller deal in a more affluent area that covers end of life and memory care. So if you look at the market is showing this. the market is showing that we are building at only 25% of the demand that we have year over year for the amount of beds we need. There is a baby boomer generation that is aging out and needing more and more and more care. And we are building only a quarter of those beds, right? Why are we building only a quarter of those beds? Because the numbers aren't penciling out. Because most of the beds built in this country are from the big smelly facilities, big corporates coming in, building these, and it's not making sense anymore. We've gone through the inflation through COVID. We have, the pricing for materials that are probably double to 2.5 times what they were 5 years ago. Then you have interest rates being what they are now, and you have staffing costs being what they are now. It just doesn't make sense anymore. So even though there is a huge demand and we will continue to have massive demand for the next 20 years, no one is taking advantage of it. Why? Because it doesn't make sense in some models, right? That's why there are so many open beds everywhere. But who is taking advantage of it is the smaller deals. The 16 beds, right? 16 beds are blowing up everywhere. I'm hearing people tell me about it all over the country that they're reaching out to me and say, hey, Brett, you've inspired me. I'm going to build my own 16 bed, right? And I think that's fantastic. The opportunity is there. The deal structure is there. It does not matter that prices go up. If the price of lumber skyrockets or steel skyrockets, it really doesn't matter, right? Because I can tell you from firsthand experience, we had, building costs nearly double. And you know what happened? Our bed rates almost doubled, right? And so we went from around COVID time, about $5,500 a month, and to within a short time, $6,500 a month, and then $7,500 a month. And now it's approaching, $9,000, $10,000 a month for me in this same market, in the exact same city, right? 55 to pushing to 10,000. And that's on the bed rates. So even though our construction did double, that's not the majority of my expenses, right? That's a smaller portion of my expenses because it's amortized in my loan. So we are therefore making way more cash flow. We used to be making 25 to 30 when we were in the 55 range. Now we're pushing over 40 as the bed rates have gone up. The bed rates have gone up because the cost of everything has gone up, right? A hamburger without French fries is like $12 now, right? Like everything's expensive. So what I'm really seeing is certain deals that are big and certain deals that are, not end of life care are getting postponed and delayed, and they're just not penciling out and they're not getting built. And deals that are smaller and focus more of end of life and memory care, those are blowing up everywhere. Those are very, very profitable. And honestly, we're seeing a transition away from the nursing home model, the big smelly facility model, and everyone's moving into the more intimate 16-bed model. So honestly, if tariffs come, they're gonna come. It's gonna be no big deal. You're just gonna keep bidding, you're gonna keep going through your planning, and you may get a bid 4 months ago and it's drastically different today. What does that mean? You're gonna pay more for construction. You're not paying the entire thing, right? You're gonna get a bank loan, so you're gonna need that proportionate amount. It's gonna be $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 more that you need for down payment. But that's not gonna stop you from doing the deal. If you had to come up with the extra money to do a $50 million deal, really that's the difference right there. Those are where deals get scrapped and now you can't do it anymore. You're gonna be able to do the $2 to $3 million deal still, right? It's not gonna go up by a skyrocketing amount, but it's also gonna be safe in the way that you are gonna make this commitment to your builder. Your builder's gonna line up his subs and you're gonna get all of your materials together. So you may see a pretty substantial difference if things skyrocket from one bid to the next, but at that point, that's when you're going to go and get your final bid, submit to the bank, get the appraisal, get your firm loan commitment. And then at those points, you need to check, are my numbers working? If they're not, you can readjust. But there sometimes is a delay when, we saw pricing skyrocket during COVID. There was a period of time where the bed rates had not caught up yet. It took about a year or so, but they slightly creeped up and creeped up and creeped up to where it's all of a sudden now it's like, man, we're making way more cash flow. But there was a little pain point there. There was 6 or 9 months where it was like, man, this is a little bit tight because this stuff all went up on the expenses, but my income hasn't yet. It will all work out if you do the right size deal. So even if things blow up and prices get crazy, I've been through it before, it's gonna be all right for this type of model. So if you've been following the show and you enjoy learning about these topics, let me know in the comments. I would love to know what you want to hear more of. Ask me a question. I will answer that and give you a shout out. Until next time, I'll see you around.